Hello, I'm Noah Hickok, and I'm giving you your election update 6 days out from the election. If you'll remember, back in May I did do a previous election, and in retrospective, it probably wasn't too accurate, but we're going to get a lot better now. So let's start out with the safe states for former Vice President Biden. And these are essentially going to be all the same, with some notable exceptions as what we saw earlier in the year with my last coverage video. We're going to cover up this is always a strong Democratic point, obviously the West Coast here, and actually the two new states that we're going to see are Colorado and Virginia, which aren't always solid for Democrat. They're generally likely, but the polls have shown good signs for Vice President Biden in those states. Moving on to President Trump, we're going to see quite a few more differences than what we saw in May. Because a lot of things have changed during his presidency, obviously a global pandemic, the peak of the Black Lives Matter movement, and the Black Lives Matter movement has now openly accepted President Trump, we will see that his poll numbers have been negatively affected. That is undisputable no matter what party you support. So the first thing I do want to show is these Republican likely states. So Montana used to be solid. It'll still go to him. I'm just not realizing I forgot Illinois. It'll still go to him, but we could see it just by a little bit less of a margin because things have tightened up. Same situation with South Carolina, especially with increased black voter turnout. Looking to the likely Democratic states, this has gotten a lot better for Vice President Biden. Firstly, Nevada, a state Secretary Clinton won in 2016, and the same situation with New Hampshire. We're looking at likely margins for them. And also, Minnesota, a state that Secretary Clinton won. Now, this is some big news that we've had developed over the passing months. Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, I would be comfortable classifying as likely Democratic states. The Biden campaign has done a good job in campaigning in the Rust Belt, and they've focused a lot of their support in Michigan and Pennsylvania, and it shows in the polls. I'll pop over into here real quick on the 538 and show you just, for example, Michigan. It went to an incredibly narrow margin to President Trump last year by 0.8%, and we're going to see that Vice President Biden is ahead by 7.9% in the polls. Excuse me. Now, I believe that is all. We're going to move to any lean Republican states. And at this point, we do only have one. Excuse me, just realizing I forgot that. There is only one lean Republican state at this point. And this is actually pretty big considering the Republican status of these states in the past. Excuse me, state. Ohio. It has correctly predicted the presidential winner for the last 60 years. The last time it didn't go to the presidential winner was back with JFK. So that goes to show that strong track record that they've had. And Joe Biden really has been able to narrow it up. We'll pop and look at the polling average. But the reality is, right now, it is ever so slightly towards President Trump. As we can see today, 1.8%. Let's look at lean Democrat states. Now, we're going to see Arizona over here. That's pretty big, and we can already see that Vice President Biden has reached 270 just with his likely votes. So, if President Trump wants to win his re-election bid, he does have quite a bit of work to put in these next 6 days. We have Arizona. It has been a strong Democratic state in the past, but in 2018 they elected a Democratic senator with a passing of Senator John McCain and Cindy McCain, his widow, who endorsed Joe Biden. We are going to see probably some pretty big changes in that state. Actually, I'm just now realizing again, I forgot to classify Alaska as likely Republican. Now, the rest of these states are going to their respective parties as of right now. This is obviously just a prediction, not what is going to happen guaranteed. Keep that in mind. Let us start with the tilt Republican states. And you will notice that all the states that are left open are states that have been won and districts by President Trump in 2016. So firstly, actually, as a matter of fact, Nebraska's 2nd congressional district is lean for Vice President Biden. Texas, let's start with that. 38 electoral votes. In the past, it has been called the Republican Party's California because it is a big electoral vote stronghold and it has been safe for the Republicans. But quite amazingly, we have seen it narrow up. Look back at 2018 where Senate candidate and former Congressman Beto O'Rourke ran for Senate, and he really got into a narrow race with Senator Ted Cruz. So we have really seen this state that has been a strong Republican stronghold narrow up quite a bit. You'll see President Trump is ahead by 1.9%. Next, we're going to look at Iowa. Now, as of today, 538, which is a pretty genuinely reputable political pundit, has rated it 50-50 chance that it could go to either candidate. I'm saying it is ever so slightly leaning towards President Trump. Next up, we are going to look at the tilt Democrat states. North Carolina went to President Obama in 2008, Mitt Romney in 2012, and Donald Trump in 2016. This is an incredibly close race, both in the presidential race and the Senate race. Florida, tilt Democrat. You are going to see President Trump in Florida a ton because he cannot win this election, without Florida. It's 29 electoral votes, 3rd most populous state in the union, and it's only growing in population. And while President Trump does have a stronghold within white voters in Florida, older white voters, which Vice President Biden is moving in onto, he really will need to secure some Latino votes if he wants to win Florida. Lastly, we have Maine's 2nd congressional district in Georgia. Let's talk about Maine's 2nd congressional district. As you can see, it covers about this much land in Maine. Covers most of the land, even if it has a lower population. That's because there's no cities in it, but it is still part of Maine, which is a generally liberal-leaning state. So this is going to be a very close race we're going to see, and I have it ever so slightly tilted towards Vice President Biden. Lastly, we're going to look at Georgia. It was considered likely Republican back in May in my last prediction, and now we are looking at tilt for Vice President Biden. If you take a look at the polling numbers today, we will see, if I have my sources correct, that Vice President Biden has a 1.4% lead in the state. This is pretty significant and largely due to high black voter registration, especially young black voters. While it might have been older black voters that got him through the primary, if he wants to win big states like Georgia, North Carolina, he is going to need the young black voters. And right now, it's looking good for him. But Georgia is incredibly close. So that is my election prediction for 6 days out. I hope you have enjoyed, and always keep in mind, I try to keep as much bias out of this as I can, and this is not exactly what is going to happen. It is just a prediction. Remember to vote. Bye-bye.